Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The thunderstorm that night wasn't like any other. Finn Calloway knew it from the way the raindrops seemed to fall sideways, from how the thunder rumbled too long, too deep, as if something vast was moving across the sky. His attic bedroom, usually a sanctuary of quiet solitude, vibrated with each lightning flash. Finn sat at his desk, sketching absently in his notebook strange patterns and cosmic scenes that had haunted his dreams lately. At 17, he'd grown accustomed to being the odd one out, the boy who preferred stargazing to football, who built radio receivers instead of attending parties. His parents were away again, another business trip that left him alone in the old house at the edge of Pinecrest. When the power flickered and died, Finn lit a candle and continued drawing. The silence that followed was almost too complete. The storm had paused as if holding its breath. That's when he heard it, a soft tapping at his window. Tap, tap, tap. Probably just a branch, he muttered, but something pulled him toward the window. Drawing back the curtain, Finn nearly stumbled backward in shock. A girl floated outside his third-story window, suspended in midair, not floating exactly, hovering as if gravity had forgotten about her. Rain plastered her hair against her face, but it wasn't ordinary hair. It shimmered with an iridescence that caught the candlelight, shifting between deep purple and midnight blue. Her eyes reflected the lightning, not just captured it, but contained it. Finn froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. The girl raised her hand and tapped again, her fingers leaving tiny ripples of light where they touched the glass. She didn't look threatening, she looked exhausted. Against all rational thought, Finn unlatched the window. Wind and rain immediately swept in, but the girl remained perfectly still. "May I enter?" Her voice was melodic but strange, as if English was a language she had learned from recordings. What are you?" Finn managed to ask. "My name is Novella," she said. "I need sanctuary, please." Perhaps it was the pleading in her voice or the way she swayed slightly, clearly weakening, but Finn stepped back, making room for her to enter. She slipped through the window with fluid grace, her feet touching the wooden floor without a sound. Up close, Finn could see that what he had taken for unusual clothing was actually a second skin of sorts. A shimmering material that resembled a wetsuit but moved like living tissue, pulsing faintly with tiny lights that flickered across its surface. "You're not human," Finn whispered, stating the obvious. Novella's lips curved into a small smile. "Not by your definition, no." She took a tentative step forward and stumbled. Finn caught her arm instinctively. It felt warm but strange, like touching silk over steel. "You're injured," he said, noticing a darker patch on her side where the lights pulsed erratically. "My vessel crashed in the forest," she explained, each word carefully formed. "I was pursued, the journey weakened me." Finn helped her to his bed, his mind racing. An actual alien was in his bedroom. The science fiction books lining his shelves suddenly felt childish compared to the reality before him. "Why me?" he asked. "Why my window?" Novella touched a small device on her wrist. It projected a holographic image, a map of the town, with a pulsing dot exactly where Finn's house stood. "Your transmissions," she said. "For 3 years you have been sending signals into space with your radio equipment. They are unusual, filled with mathematics but also music. I recognized the pattern. I knew the sender would understand difference without fear." Finn's jaw dropped. His late-night hobby, broadcasting mathematical sequences interspersed with classical music into space, had actually reached something. "Those were just experiments," he stammered. "I never thought." "Few do," Novella said, "yet you continued sending them. Why?" Finn shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "Because the universe feels too big to be empty, because I hoped someone was listening." The storm outside resumed its fury, lightning illuminating Novella's face. In that flash, Finn saw exhaustion and relief, but also wariness. "They will come for me," she said, her voice dropping. "The collective, they track all unauthorized planetary contact." "Who are they?" Finn asked, moving to close the window against the rain. "Those who believe isolation is safety. They enforce separation between worlds." Novella's hand went to the injury at her side. "My people once believed in exploration, in connection, now they fear it." Finn grabbed a first aid kit from his bathroom. He had no idea if human medicine would help an alien, but he had to try something. "Why did you leave?" he asked, gently cleaning the wound, which seemed to be healing itself already, the edges knitting together with tiny threads of light. Novella looked at him with those lightning eyes. "Because truth cannot survive in isolation, because my world is dying and yours might be next if we do not share knowledge." The implications of her words chilled Finn more than the rain-soaked air. Next for what? Before she could answer, a low hum vibrated through the house. Not thunder, something mechanical. Novella stiffened, her eyes widening. They've found me faster than I calculated, she whispered. Finn rushed to the window. In the distance, above the forest where she said her ship had crashed, a light moved, too steady to be lightning, too precise to be human technology. It swept back and forth methodically. What do we do? He asked, surprised at how quickly he had accepted his role in her predicament. Novella stood shakily. I need to repair my communicator. I can call for help, but I need time. Finn nodded, making a split-second decision that would change everything. I'll help you, but we need to hide you somewhere safer than my bedroom. As if in answer, the house's power returned, lights flickering on. Novella flinched at the sudden brightness. Finn quickly grabbed his backpack, emptying school books onto the floor and filling it with essentials: flashlight, his portable radio equipment, some food from his emergency stash. My father built a shelter beneath the house during the Cold War, he explained. No one remembers it's there except me. We'll be safe there while we figure this out. Novella touched his arm lightly, her fingers leaving a faint trail of luminescence on his skin that faded after a moment. Why would you risk yourself for someone not of your world? Finn paused, considering the question. Because you knocked on my window, he said finally. Not theirs, that makes you my responsibility. Outside, the strange light grew closer. Inside, a boy who had always searched the stars and a girl who had fallen from them hurried down the creaking stairs into the unknown darkness below. The storm raged on, covering their tracks, but both knew the night was just beginning, and the real tempest was yet to come. The shelter beneath Finn's house was a relic from another era: concrete walls, steel shelving stocked with decades-old supplies, and a musty smell that spoke of years of abandonment. Finn fumbled with the old light switch, and a single bulb sputtered to life, casting long shadows across the cramped space. No one comes down here, Finn explained, clearing dusty boxes from a small cot in the corner. My father showed me once when I was little, made me memorize where the key was hidden, just in case. Novella moved cautiously around the room, her fingertips trailing over the concrete walls. The lights beneath her skin pulsed slower, now steadier, as if she was regaining strength. Your dwelling has deep roots, she observed. My people would appreciate such foresight. Finn set his backpack down on a metal table. So your people, are they all like you? Novella's lips curved in a slight smile. Are all humans like you? Fair point, Finn admitted, feeling his cheeks warm. He busied himself arranging supplies. My world is called Lumina, Novella said after a moment. Once we were travelers, explorers, we charted countless worlds, learning, growing. She touched the device on her wrist, and it projected a holographic star map that filled the small bunker with pinpricks of light. But then came the divergence. Finn watched, mesmerized, as certain stars in the projection turned red. Some believed we should integrate with other species, share knowledge freely. Others, the collective, argued that contact brought only contamination and conflict. Her voice dropped. There was war, the collective one. Finn sat beside her on the cot. And you're on the other side. I am part of the remnant, those who still believe in connection. She closed the projection with a wave of her hand. We discovered something, a cosmic anomaly affecting multiple systems, including yours. The collective wants to use this knowledge as leverage to control worlds like Earth rather than warn them. A distant rumble shook dust from the ceiling, not thunder this time, but something else. Novella's head snapped up. They're using resonance scanners, she whispered, searching for my energy signature. Finn's pulse quickened. Will they find us down here? The Earth barriers will shield us temporarily. Novella removed the device from her wrist and placed it on the table. It resembled a liquid metal bracelet, now partially solidified where it was damaged. I need to repair this communicator. Can you help me gather components? Finn nodded, pulling out his tools and electronic equipment from his backpack. I've built radios from scrap before, but alien tech might be a stretch. The principles are universal, Novella assured him. Energy, frequency, transmission. As they worked side by side, Finn stealing glances at her luminescent skin and otherworldly movements, questions bubbled to the surface. How did you learn our language? We've been monitoring Earth for decades, she explained, carefully extracting a damaged crystal from her device. Your broadcast signals travel far. I specialized in Earth studies before the divergence. So you've been watching us? Finn asked, feeling oddly exposed. Observing, learning, she paused, meeting his eyes. Your music especially, it follows mathematical patterns yet carries emotion. My kind finds this fascinating. Finn felt a surge of pride knowing his transmissions had stood out to her. What's it like, your world? Novella's eyes took on a distant look. Lumina orbits a binary star system. Our days shift between gold and blue light. Our cities float on electromagnetic fields above crystal forests. She smiled sadly. Or they did, the war changed much. Another rumble closer this time interrupted them. The single bulb flickered. They're expanding their search pattern, Novella said, her voice tense. We must work faster. Hours passed as they worked on the communicator, Finn providing Earth components that Novella somehow integrated with her alien technology. Occasionally, their fingers would touch, and Finn would feel a slight electric tingle, not unpleasant, just different. Why did they shoot you down? Finn asked finally, as Novella tested a connection with his voltage meter. Because I carry proof, she replied, her voice barely audible. Data showing that the cosmic anomaly was triggered artificially. The collective didn't just discover it, they created it. Finn's hands stilled. Created what exactly? A cascading wave of gravitational disturbances, she explained. It will reach your solar system within 5 of your years. When it does, she shook her head. Planetary orbits will destabilize, weather patterns will collapse. They're weaponizing space itself, Finn whispered, the enormity of it sinking in. Yes, to force worlds to accept their protection and control. Novella looked down at the communicator. The Remnant has technology that could counter it, but we need allies, worlds working together. A sudden piercing tone made them both jump. It came from Finn's pocket, his phone. The screen showed his friend's name, Ren. Should I answer? He asked Novella. She nodded cautiously. Your normal behaviors will cause less suspicion. Finn accepted the call. Hey, Ren. Dude, are you seeing this? Ren's excited voice came through. The whole town's going crazy about lights in the sky. Some people are saying it's a military exercise, others think it's UFOs. I'm driving around trying to get footage. Where are you? Finn's eyes met Novella's. I'm home just riding out the storm. Boring, listen, I'm heading to the ridge above your place. Best view of whatever's happening, want me to swing by? Finn hesitated. Ren was his best friend, the only person who had never mocked his space obsession, but involving her meant putting her at risk. Not tonight, he said finally, but be careful up there, okay? Maybe this isn't something you want to get close to. Are you kidding? This is exactly what we've talked about for years, first contact. After promising to call if he saw anything from his window, Finn ended the call. That was my friend Ren, he explained to Novella. She's enthusiastic about extraterrestrial life. You trust her? Novella asked. Before Finn could answer, the shelter door at the top of the stairs rattled. They froze, staring up at the entry. Did you lock it? Novella whispered. Yes, Finn breathed, but... The door shook again, harder this time. Then came a voice, not Ren's but deeper, oddly flat. Scan indicates recent entry, investigating potential concealment. Finn's blood ran cold. Novella quickly gathered the communicator parts, stuffing them into his backpack. There's another way out, Finn whispered, pointing to a narrow tunnel in the back wall. My dad said it leads to the woods, emergency exit. The shelter door groaned as something heavy pressed against it. The metal hinges began to bend inward. Go, Novella urged, pushing Finn toward the tunnel. Not without you, he insisted, grabbing her arm. Her skin flared brighter at his touch. For a moment she seemed torn, then she nodded, following him to the tunnel entrance. Finn pulled away a metal covering, revealing a narrow passage barely wide enough for one person. You first, Novella said. I can seal it behind us. As Finn crawled into the darkness, he heard the shelter door finally give way with a screech of metal. A beam of intense blue light swept the room they had just abandoned. Novella slipped into the tunnel behind him, her glowing skin providing just enough light to see by. She pressed her palm against the tunnel entrance and a shimmering field appeared, camouflaging the opening. They crawled in silence for what felt like hours, the tunnel gradually sloping upward. Finn's knees and elbows ached, his clothes were filthy, but adrenaline kept him moving forward. Behind them, occasional vibrations suggested their pursuers hadn't given up. Finally, Finn felt cool night air. The tunnel ended in a thicket of brambles that scratched his face as he pushed through. He emerged into the forest, stars visible through the canopy. The storm had passed, leaving everything wet and glistening. Novella emerged beside him, her luminescence dimmed to almost nothing, a survival adaptation, Finn guessed. In the distance, strange lights still moved methodically over the town. We need higher ground, Novella whispered, to complete the repairs and send the signal. Finn nodded, oriented himself, and pointed toward the ridge. That way, but we need to be careful. Because my friend Ren is up there, he said grimly, looking for aliens. As they began their careful ascent through the dripping forest, Finn couldn't help but think about how quickly his life had changed. Yesterday, he had been a lonely teenager sending hopeful messages into space. Tonight, he was running through the woods with an alien fugitive, pursued by interstellar enforcers, carrying information that could affect Earth's very survival. And somewhere ahead, unknowingly walking into danger, was the one person besides Novella who might actually believe his incredible story. The forest path to the ridge was treacherous in the aftermath of the storm. Mud sucked at their shoes and broken branches lay strewn across their path like nature's warning signs. Finn led the way, his phone's flashlight casting a weak beam through the darkness. Behind him, Novella moved with unnatural grace, her footsteps nearly silent despite the soggy ground. "We should be close to the ridge," Finn whispered, pausing to catch his breath. "There's an old observation point up ahead. Ren and I used to stargaze there." Novella tilted her head toward the sky. The clouds had parted, revealing a canopy of stars that seemed to respond to her gaze, twinkling more intensely as she looked at them. "Your friend," she said softly, "will she be afraid of me?" Finn considered this. "Ren has been theorizing about alien life since we were kids. She'll probably ask you a million questions before she even remembers to be scared." This earned a small smile from Novella, the first genuine one Finn had seen. It transformed her features, making her look, for a moment, more human, or perhaps making him realize how artificial his concept of human truly was. A twig snapped somewhere behind them. They both froze, listening intently. The forest had gone unnaturally quiet, no insects chirping, no nocturnal animals rustling in the underbrush. "They're tracking us," Novella whispered, her skin dimming further until she was barely visible. "How many?" "3 units, I think. Standard recovery team." She touched the backpack containing her communicator parts. "We need to hurry." They moved faster now, abandoning stealth for speed. As they neared the ridge, a faint glow appeared ahead, not the harsh blue light of their pursuers, but the warm yellow of a camping lantern. "That's probably Ren," Finn said. They emerged from the tree line onto a rocky outcrop that offered a panoramic view of Pinecrest below. The town looked eerily beautiful from this height, its lights dimmed by the power outages but still tracing the contours of streets and buildings. Above it all, strange aircraft moved in geometric patterns, their searchlights sweeping methodically. Near the edge of the outcrop sat a figure hunched over what looked like camera equipment. Ren's familiar silhouette was outlined by her lantern as she adjusted the settings on her telescope. "Ren," Finn called out softly, not wanting to startle her so close to the cliff edge. She whirled around, her face lighting up at the sight of him. "Finn, I knew you'd change your mind. This is incredible. I've been tracking at least 5. Her words died as Novella stepped into the lantern light. "Whose?" Finn watched as realization dawned on Ren's face. She took in Novella's otherworldly appearance, the iridescent skin, the eyes that reflected starlight too perfectly, the fluid grace of her movements. "Ren, this is Novella," Finn said, trying to sound casual, as if introducing an exchange student rather than an extraterrestrial. "She needs our help." To her credit, Ren didn't scream or run. Instead, she took a single step forward, her eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. "You're not from here," she said, her voice barely audible. "No," Novella confirmed. "I come from a system you call HD 40307. Ren's scientific mind immediately engaged. "The super-Earth exoplanet, the one with potentially habitable conditions." Novella nodded. "My people have lived there for millennia." "This is," Ren shook her head in disbelief. "This changes everything we know about." "Ren," Finn interrupted urgently. "We can do the first contact protocol later. Right now we're being hunted." As if on cue, a blue light swept over the forest below them, closer than before. Ren's excitement shifted instantly to alertness. "Hunted by what?" "The collective," Novella explained. "They enforce isolation between worlds. They believe Earth is not ready for contact. And they're willing to kill to maintain that belief," Finn added grimly. Ren processed this with remarkable composure. "What do you need from me?" Finn quickly explained about the communicator and the need to warn others about the gravitational weapon. Ren listened intently, then immediately began gathering her equipment. "My car is just down the access road," she said. "We can use my place. My parents are away at a conference all week." "Your dwelling would be the first place they look," Novella cautioned. "We need somewhere unexpected." Ren thought for a moment, then snapped her fingers. "The observatory, the old one at the community college. It's been closed for renovations, but Professor Harlow gave me the key so I could use the computer lab for my astronomy project." "Perfect," Finn agreed. "Lots of equipment we could use, and it's shielded for radio astronomy work." They quickly packed Ren's gear, but as they turned to leave, a blinding blue light swept over them. Unlike the searching beams below, this one fixed directly on their position, pinning them in its harsh glare. A low hum filled the air, pressing against their eardrums with physical force. "Run," Novella shouted, pushing them toward the path that led to the access road. They sprinted through the trees, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, something large displaced the air with a whoosh, landing where they had stood moments before. Finn risked a glance back and caught a glimpse of a tall, angular figure, humanoid but wrong somehow, its proportions subtly off, its movements too precise. "Don't look at them," Novella warned. "Their visors can lock onto retinal patterns." They reached Ren's beat-up station wagon, piling in as she fumbled with the keys. The engine sputtered then roared to life. Ren stomped on the accelerator, sending gravel flying as they fishtailed onto the narrow road. "What exactly are those things?" Ren asked, her knuckles white on the steering wheel as she navigated the winding descent. "Sentinels," Novella replied, crouching low in the backseat. "Biomechanical enforcers, not fully alive, not fully machine." "Can they be stopped?" Finn asked. "Yes, but not easily. They're designed to adapt to threats." The car's headlights illuminated the rain-slicked road ahead, trees flashing by in a dark blur. As they rounded a bend, a figure stood motionless in the center of the road, tall, silvery, with a featureless face that reflected their headlights like a mirror. Ren swerved hard, the car's tires losing traction on the wet asphalt. They slid sideways, narrowly missing the sentinel but heading straight for the guardrail that separated the road from a steep drop. "Hold on," Ren shouted, fighting the wheel. The car smashed through the guardrail with a screech of metal, teetering on the edge for one heart-stopping moment before Ren managed to wrestle it back onto the road. The sentinel was already turning, moving with unnatural speed to pursue them. "It's calling the others," Novella said, watching as the lights in the sky changed pattern, converging toward their location. They reached the outskirts of town, the streets eerily empty. Power was still out in most areas, windows dark except for occasional flashlight beams or candles. They took a circuitous route to avoid the main roads, finally pulling into the community college's deserted parking lot. The observatory dome loomed against the starry sky, its white surface reflecting the strange lights that now circled overhead. "We need to get inside quickly," Ren said, grabbing her backpack. "The dome will help shield us from whatever scanning technology they're using." They dashed across the open ground to the observatory's side entrance. Ren's hands shook as she unlocked the door, ushering them into the darkness beyond. Once inside, Finn helped her secure the door while Novella examined their surroundings with curious eyes. The observatory was a single large room dominated by the telescope mechanism in the center. Computer workstations lined the walls, their screens dark in the power outage. A backup generator hummed in the corner, providing minimal emergency lighting. "We need power," Finn said, heading for the generator controls. "And a secure network connection," Ren added, already booting up one of the workstations. Novella carefully unpacked the communicator parts onto a clear workspace. "With your equipment, I may be able to amplify my signal," she said, reach deeper into space. As they worked frantically to assemble what they needed, a low, pulsing tone began to emanate from outside. Not a sound exactly, but a vibration that made their teeth ache and vision blur. "Resonance scanner," Novella explained grimly. "They're trying to disrupt electronic equipment." "Will it affect your communicator?" Finn asked, steadying himself against a desk as the vibration intensified. "I'll get the component," Finn volunteered. "Show me where." Ren hesitated, then handed him her key card. "Down the stairs, third door on the left, it looks like a silver cube with blue lights. Be careful disconnecting it." Finn nodded and headed for the stairwell, his heart pounding in his ears. As he descended into the darkness below, he could hear Novella and Ren working above, their voices urgent but determined. He found the lab easily enough, the key card granting him access to a room filled with equipment he couldn't begin to understand. The gravitational wave detector sat on a central pedestal, exactly as Ren had described, a silver cube pulsing with soft blue light. As Finn carefully disconnected it from its housing, he felt rather than heard something enter the observatory above. A sudden silence fell, more terrifying than any noise. Clutching the precious component, Finn crept back up the stairs. At the top, he peered around the corner and froze. A sentinel stood in the center of the room, its mirrored face slowly turning as it scanned the area. Ren was pressed against a wall, utterly still, barely breathing. Of Novella, there was no sign. Finn's gaze darted to the communicator parts, still laid out on the workbench. If he could just reach them, add the component. The sentinel suddenly rotated, its featureless face pointing directly at Finn's hiding spot. A seam appeared in what should have been its mouth, widening to reveal not teeth but a pulsing blue light. "Human presence detected," it said in a voice like grinding metal. "Interference with collective operations is prohibited. Identify location of fugitive designate Novella 9. Finn's mind raced. He needed to create a distraction, give Novella, wherever she was, time to complete the communicator. Taking a deep breath, Finn stepped into view, the gravitational component clutched tightly to his chest. I don't know any Novella 9, he said, forcing bravado into his voice. But I do know you're trespassing. This is Earth and you weren't invited. The sentinel took a step toward him, its movements fluid yet wrong, like water flowing uphill. Final warning, it intoned. Surrender the component and the fugitive designate. From the corner of his eye, Finn saw movement, a shimmer in the air behind the sentinel. Novella had somehow made herself nearly invisible, her skin matching the background like a chameleon as she crept toward the workbench. Finn smiled at the sentinel, a gesture of defiance to hold its attention. You know what? I don't think I will. The sentinel moved with frightening speed, closing the distance to Finn in less than a heartbeat. Its silvery arms extended unnaturally, reaching for the component he clutched. Finn dove sideways, rolling behind a workstation as the creature's hand smashed into the wall where he had stood, leaving a crater in the concrete. Ren, catch, Finn shouted, hurling the gravitational component across the room. Ren lunged forward, snatching the device from midair with the practiced ease of a varsity softball player. The sentinel's head swiveled toward her, its blank face reflecting her terrified expression. Over here, Finn yelled, grabbing a fire extinguisher from the wall and spraying it directly at the sentinel. The white chemical cloud engulfed the creature, obscuring its reflective surface. For a moment, it seemed confused, its sensors struggling to penetrate the particulate haze. Ren scrambled toward the workbench where the communicator lay partially assembled. Novella rematerialized beside her, her camouflage ability fading as she focused on connecting the gravitational component. How much time do you need? Ren asked, hands steady despite her fear as she held the component in place. 2 minutes to integrate, 1 to activate, Novella replied, her fingers moving with blurring speed across the device. Finn, we need 3 minutes, Ren called out. Working on it, Finn replied, continuing to spray the disoriented sentinel as he backed toward the observatory's control panel. He remembered enough from Ren's astronomy club tour to know what might help. Reaching the panel, he slammed his hand down on the emergency protocol button. With a mechanical groan, the observatory dome began to rotate, its viewing slit opening to the night sky. At the same time, the massive telescope in the center of the room whirred to life, powered by the backup generators, and began to reposition itself. The sudden movement seemed to confuse the sentinel further. It turned in circles, its sensors trying to track multiple threats at once. Above them, through the opening dome, more blue lights were visible, descending rapidly. They're sending reinforcements, Finn warned, abandoning the now-empty fire extinguisher and diving behind the telescope base as the sentinel finally located him again. Almost there, Novella called back, her hands now a blur of motion as she integrated the component into her device. The communicator was taking shape, a complex arrangement of Earth technology and alien components that pulsed with increasing energy. The sentinel lurched toward Finn, its movements becoming more erratic as something in the observatory's equipment interfered with its systems. It extended a hand, and the fingers elongated into metallic tendrils that whipped toward him. Finn scrambled backward, but one tendril wrapped around his ankle, yanking him across the floor. He clawed desperately at the smooth concrete, finding no purchase. Finn, Ren shouted. She grabbed a laser pointer from her astronomy kit and aimed it directly at the sentinel's face. The red beam hit the reflective surface and scattered in all directions, momentarily creating a dazzling light show that caused the creature to loosen its grip. Finn kicked free and rolled to his feet. The telescope, he yelled, help me move it. Understanding instantly, Ren rushed to the telescope controls. Together, they manually overrode the safety protocols, using the emergency handles to swing the massive instrument directly at the sentinel. The telescope's housing, weighing nearly a ton, crashed into the creature with devastating force, pinning it against the wall. The sentinel's limbs thrashed wildly, its featureless face cracking to reveal circuitry beneath. It won't hold it for long, Ren panted, already retreating to where Novella worked. The communicator was now complete, a pulsing orb of light and technology that hovered slightly above the workbench. Novella's hands moved in complex patterns around it, tuning frequencies invisible to human eyes. Ready to transmit, she announced, but I need direct line of sight to the Lumina system. Through the open dome, they could see the constellation where her home star would be located. But more pressing were the 3 new sentinels descending through the opening, their bodies silhouetted against the night sky. We need to get to the roof, Finn urged, already heading for the spiral staircase that led to the observation platform. Novella carefully lifted the communicator, which moved with her as if tethered by an invisible string. They raced up the stairs, emerging onto the narrow walkway that circled the dome's exterior. The night air was cold and thick with tension. Below them, the town of Pinecrest sprawled in darkness, oblivious to the cosmic drama unfolding above. The three new sentinels landed on the dome with metallic thuds, their mirrored faces turning in unison toward the humans and their alien ally. Inside the observatory, the first sentinel was breaking free from the telescope, the sound of tearing metal echoing through the night. "Whatever you're going to do, do it now," Finn said, positioning himself between Novella and the approaching threats. Novella raised the communicator above her head. It began to pulse more rapidly, the light within it shifting through colors humans had no names for. She spoke in her native language, a series of melodic tones that seemed to resonate with the device. The sentinels hesitated, as if recognizing the technology. Then, with renewed purpose, they advanced along the walkway, their movements synchronized and implacable. "I need more time," Novella said, her voice strained. "The signal is having trouble penetrating Earth's atmosphere." Ren looked around desperately, then pointed to the satellite dish mounted on the observatory's highest point. "That's connected to the Deep Space Network. Could you use it to amplify your signal?" Novella nodded. "If we can integrate my communicator with your transmitter." "I can do that," Ren said with newfound confidence. "I've been hacking into that system for my projects all year." While Ren worked on connecting the alien device to Earth technology, Finn faced the advancing sentinels. Armed with nothing but determination, he stood his ground. "You can't have her," he said, his voice carrying across the walkway. "This isn't your world to control." The lead sentinel paused, its featureless face tilting as if curious. When it spoke, its voice had changed, becoming almost human. "This protection protocol exists for your benefit," it said. "Your species is not prepared for the knowledge she brings." "That's not your decision to make," Finn retorted. "It's ours." "Your history suggests otherwise," the sentinel replied. "Every advancement in your technology has led to new methods of destruction.